When Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany, one voice cut through the fear like a church bell in a storm. Millions heard it over crackling radios and believed survival was still possible. To many, Winston Churchill became the man who saved democracy. To others, he remained a deeply controversial figure whose decisions carried devastating consequences. To understand the legend, we must first discover the man behind the cigar, the speeches, and the unbreakable resolve. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was born on November 30, 1874, at Blenheim Palace, one of Britain's grandest estates. Despite his aristocratic heritage, his childhood was marked less by privilege than by loneliness. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was an ambitious politician, while his American-born mother, Jenny Jerome, dazzled high society. Both were frequently absent, leaving young Winston craving attention and approval. The person who offered him genuine affection was his nanny, Elizabeth Everest, whom he loved like a second mother. At school, Churchill struggled with discipline and conventional learning. Teachers often considered him difficult, yet beneath the rebellious exterior burned a fierce determination. After several failed attempts, he earned admission to the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. There, he discovered confidence, discipline, and a lifelong fascination with warfare and history. The lonely boy who longed to prove himself had finally found his path. Churchill's education did not end in the classroom. It continued on battlefields across the British Empire. As a young cavalry officer, he served in Cuba, India, Sudan, and South Africa, eagerly placing himself where danger was greatest. He also worked as a war correspondent, writing vivid reports that quickly gained attention. During the Second Boer War, he was captured by enemy forces, only to escape dramatically from a prison camp and travel hundreds of miles to safety. Newspapers celebrated his daring adventure, transforming him into a national celebrity almost overnight. Capitalizing on his growing fame, Churchill entered Parliament in 1900. His political career advanced rapidly, though not without controversy. He even crossed the floor of Parliament, switching from the Conservative Party to the Liberals, believing principle mattered more than party loyalty. Confident, ambitious, and convinced that history favored bold decisions, Churchill climbed steadily toward the highest ranks of government. Yet ambition can be both a gift and a dangerous companion. In 1911, Churchill became First Lord of the Admiralty, responsible for preparing Britain's navy for war. When the First World War erupted, he championed a bold plan to force the Dardanelles and seize the Gallipoli Peninsula, hoping to weaken the Ottoman Empire and open a supply route to Russia. Instead, the campaign became one of the war's greatest disasters. Poor planning, fierce resistance, and impossible terrain led to the deaths of tens of thousands of Allied soldiers. Churchill accepted responsibility and resigned from office. Many believed his political career had ended forever. Refusing to disappear, he joined the army and served on the Western Front, experiencing the brutal realities of trench warfare firsthand. Returning to politics after the war, Churchill gradually rebuilt his reputation. Throughout the 1930s, while many leaders hoped peace could be preserved through compromise, he repeatedly warned that Adolf Hitler's growing military power threatened all of Europe. His warnings were dismissed by many as alarmist. History would soon prove otherwise. Everything changed in May 1940. Germany swept across Western Europe with astonishing speed. As France collapsed and British forces retreated toward Dunkirk, Winston Churchill became Prime Minister. Britain faced its darkest hour. Many politicians considered negotiating with Hitler, believing defeat was inevitable. Churchill refused. Instead, he stood before Parliament and declared that he had nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. Days later, after the miraculous evacuation at Dunkirk rescued hundreds of thousands of soldiers, he vowed, "We shall fight on the beaches." As invasion seemed imminent, he promised that if Britain endured, future generations would remember it as their finest hour. His speeches did not destroy enemy tanks or aircraft, but they strengthened something equally vital: national resolve. In homes, factories, and air raid shelters, ordinary people found courage in extraordinary words. Churchill understood that wars are fought not only with weapons, but with belief. That belief would soon face its greatest test. During the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force confronted the mighty Luftwaffe in the skies above southern England. Night after night, German bombers devastated British cities during the Blitz. Churchill refused to hide from the destruction. He visited bombed neighborhoods, spoke with grieving families, and showed a nation that its leader would share its dangers. Looking at the young RAF pilots defending Britain, he delivered another unforgettable tribute: never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Yet Churchill knew Britain could not win alone. Across the Atlantic, he cultivated a close partnership with American President Franklin D. Roosevelt, securing crucial support through Lend-Lease before the United States formally entered the war. After Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Churchill formed an uneasy alliance with Joseph Stalin despite their profound ideological differences. Personal mistrust never disappeared, but defeating Nazi Germany demanded cooperation. Churchill became not only Britain's wartime leader, but also one of the architects of the Grand Alliance that would ultimately change the course of history. By 1942, the tide slowly began to turn. Allied victories in North Africa shattered the myth of German invincibility. Campaigns in Sicily and Italy opened a new front against the Axis powers. Churchill met repeatedly with Roosevelt and Stalin, shaping the strategy that would liberate occupied Europe. Their most ambitious undertaking was Operation Overlord, the invasion of Normandy. On June 6, 1944, thousands of ships crossed the English Channel as Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of France. D-Day marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's empire. Month by month, Allied forces pushed east while Soviet armies advanced from the opposite direction. Germany's defeat became inevitable. Yet even in victory, Churchill remained a complex figure. His role in the Bengal Famine of 1943 continues to generate fierce historical debate. Critics argue that wartime priorities and imperial policies worsened the catastrophe, while others emphasize the wider pressures of global war. His outspoken defense of the British Empire and colonial rule has likewise drawn lasting criticism. Churchill's achievements cannot erase these controversies, nor can those controversies erase his leadership during Britain's greatest crisis. On May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day filled the streets with celebration. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, cheering the man who had guided Britain through years of unimaginable danger. Yet only weeks later, the British public voted him out of office. After years of sacrifice, many citizens wanted sweeping social reforms more than wartime leadership. Churchill accepted the result with characteristic dignity. In 1951, he returned as Prime Minister for a second term, though age and declining health limited his energy. During the early Cold War, he warned that an Iron Curtain had descended across Europe, a phrase that became one of the defining descriptions of the new global conflict. In 1953, he received the Nobel Prize in Literature for his historical writings and masterful command of the English language. He retired from politics in 1955 and died a decade later. His state funeral in 1965 drew leaders from around the world, honoring a figure whose influence had stretched across generations. History rarely gives us perfect heroes. It gives us complicated individuals whose strengths and flaws leave permanent marks on the world. Winston Churchill inspired millions to resist tyranny when defeat seemed certain, yet many of his decisions continue to provoke serious debate among historians. His legacy cannot be reduced to simple praise or condemnation. Instead, it stands as a reminder that leadership in moments of crisis often demands extraordinary courage while remaining subject to the judgment of history. Whether remembered as Britain's greatest wartime leader or as one of its most controversial statesmen, Winston Churchill forever changed the course of the 20th century, and the echoes of his choices still shape our world today.